Next on Utah Matters, a real public safety success story, but proceed with caution. Coming up next on Utah Matters. Good morning and welcome to Utah Matters. I'm Dean Paynter. You know, they say numbers don't lie, and here are some that fortunately are pretty hard to argue with. Traffic deaths in Utah have dropped dramatically over the past 13 years. In the year 2000, 373 people died on Utah highways. In this past year, just 220 deaths, a 41% drop. That's quite remarkable by anyone's standards, especially given the fact that there are more cars on the road and more traffic miles to take into account. Much of the good news is attributed to various safety campaigns, like this one.
Sam looks like he's sleeping, but he's not. He's not thinking. He's not breathing. He's dead. He was in a crash, but the twist is that didn't kill him. His unbuckled parent did by flying into the backseat of the car after the impact.
Despite the success of the Zero Fatalities campaign and other safety programs, traffic accidents still account for a huge number of injuries and property damage. Almost 22,000 people suffered injuries from crashes last year. Today on Utah Matters, we're looking at the successes and challenges related to highway safety and the residual issues that emerge when people crash into each other. We welcome with us Sergeant Todd Royce from the Utah Highway Patrol, Dr. Shetlin, a member of the Whiplash Group and someone who specializes in auto accident injuries, and also Bryan Larson, who is a personal injury attorney. Thank you all for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go back to the stats for just a minute. This is pretty remarkable. The number of auto deaths this year have not been this low since I looked 1959, and in 1959 we had a population in Utah of 870,000, less than a million. We're now coming up on 3 million. Why is this happening?
Well, you know, if you look at the numbers, we can attribute it to a few things. Better engineering, better engineered cars, better engineered roads. We think better enforcement. We're a little bit more efficient that way. And education, educating the people on the drivers out there on how to drive better and how to drive safer. And one of those points being seatbelt usage has gone up.
Dr. J, you in your book, you've written a book, Whiplash and Hidden Soft Tissue Injuries, dealing with your experiences with auto injuries. You talk about when we talk about the technology in cars, the advanced technology, you talk about a 57 Chevy and what might have happened if you were driving one in those days. Yeah. It's pretty explicit, but yes. give us the TV version.
Well, in those older vehicles, they just didn't have the safety features that we have today, and they didn't have the structure was very rigid. So we as the occupants would really either bump around in there or get impaled on those old steering columns, where nowadays the vehicles are designed that in a high-speed collision or over 10 miles an hour, we have crumple zones, we have airbags, and these things that actually help reduce the impact forces that we as the occupants experience. But of course, that seatbelt's really important because without the seatbelt, we end up in the explosion zone of the airbag, making that something that could harm us rather than help us. So it is important to wear that seatbelt.
Yeah. Sergeant Boyce, when you talk about driver's education, do you mean in the high schools, the lower levels? What are you talking about?
We're talking about the whole gamut, everywhere from when you're a child and your parent tells you to make sure and get your seatbelt on, that this car's not going to move unless your seatbelt's on, all the way through our lives. We're improving on our driving techniques, and if people can remember when they were a teenager versus when they're an adult, how much better a driver in most cases they are when they're adult than when they're a teenager, and that's just attributed to experience and learning.
Yeah, I want to hit a few other points in the 2013 summary on traffic. There were 18 fewer unrestrained occupant deaths, meaning fewer people died because they weren't wearing seatbelts.
Right.
You just went over that. 5 fewer children. The rules on child restraint have been beefed up, have they not?
Yep. And if you look at the statistics of children in car seats and how those rules apply, and what we've learned over the years on that has significantly improved.
Yeah. 3 fewer deaths involving a teen driver. Bryan, teens are still make up a huge percentage of those that are involved in
there are, as a matter of fact, some of the statistics in Utah show that even though teens constitute only about 2% of the driving population, they still are involved in about 25% of the accidents, and that's a completely disproportionate percentage.
They pay a real higher rate of insurance too, don't they?
Anybody that's got a teenager knows that, that's for sure.
What are we doing about teens, Sergeant? What is your tact on teens and driving?
Well, at the Highway Patrol, we're with public information and education program we have, we're putting a lot more troopers in driver's ed classes to actually interact with those students, those teenage drivers that are inexperienced. They feel like they're experienced, but as we know that there's a disproportionate amount of crashes to experience.
Yeah. Do they listen?
Most of them do, mainly because they're there because they want to be. You look at all the other subjects, and sometimes the kids don't want to be in there, but they all want to get their driver's licenses. And so most of them will listen. Some of them give you a little pushback, just like normal teenagers do. But when we show them some of the crash footage and some of the scenes that we've been on, we believe it makes a difference. We believe it's thought-provoking for those teenage drivers.
You know, they were doing that when I was a teenager, taking driver's ed, showing us those awful scenes. That still seems to be effective, eh?
Yeah.
Scared straight.
Yeah, we don't use as much graphic as what used to be, but yeah, we walk them through.
Yeah, you can't shock kids anymore.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We walk them through the dynamics.
Great video game.
Yeah. We walk them through the dynamics of a crash, kind of the forces that are involved in a crash, and the results of a crash. And we use real stories, real experiences from us on the roadway, and some of the faults that are happening out there that are causing death.
What is your opinion, all of you, on the Zero Fatalities campaign, the advertising campaign? Any feedback on how successful, what impact that's had?
You know, I actually attended one of those presentations just this week. I've got a daughter that's just about ready to get into driver's ed, and it was the first one of those evening presentations that I attended. I thought it was very well done. You know, there's certainly always things you can do to improve a presentation, but I think the concept is good. And frankly, even though it was designed for the teens, they invited the adults to attend. And I have to admit, I walked out of there thinking a couple of different thoughts too, and I think it was very valuable for the adults to get the same education.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty in it, because myself and some other doctors used to volunteer at some of the high schools and driver's ed, just like the police do. But it was always just the kids, and I think where Zero Fatalities has really cranked that up, where it's parents and kids learning together, discussing that as they go home, I think it's pretty powerful. It's been a very effective campaign.
I want to go back to about the teenagers. Dr. Shetlin, you've done presentations in several high schools. In fact, we caught up with you on one that you were doing at Harriman High School, I think it was.
Correct.
And I want to show just the beginning of your presentation for a second.
This statistic just really gets under my skin. Nationally, motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of deaths for teenagers in this country. That's pretty disturbing to me, especially since I've lived and practiced overseas, and I'll compare some things with Europe and here and Asia. But in other countries, you know, teens don't get killed as often in car accidents, but here they do. Any reasons why you might think that could happen?
Careless drivers.
Okay, careless. You guys think you guys are careless? You're here learning the right stuff, right? Not trying to be careless, but there might be some out there that are careless. Well, do you think there's more teens on the road here in America than in other countries? What do you think? A lot more. And there's a couple interesting reasons why this statistic is so high. And one of them is that the research shows we're just not neurologically developed enough to operate heavy machinery before the age of 20. That's why you guys couldn't get a job at the docks in LA, you know, operating cranes, lifting stuff off of ships and stuff. But cars are heavy machinery. And by the research standards, I'm not picking on your mental maturity. This is our neurological development maturity. We don't have the reflexes and stuff that we need to operate heavy machinery. And that's why in other countries they say, you know what, the driving age is 20. Some they're 18, but nobody can afford to drive at that age. I mean, how much did you guys spend for this class, or your parents? Like $95? Yeah. not too shabby. So $95 and a little test, and you can drive a car.
What's been your response from those presentations, Dr. J?
I think it's been really good. The kids do. They do pay attention. I think they pay a little more attention when there's a uniform at the front of the class. Or you got your parents sitting next to you at a class at Zero Vitality. So I think that's the beauty of it. But you know, every little bit we can do to help these kids just be more attentive and take this more seriously, because it's not a video game to drive a car. It's a heavy piece of machinery, and it's a lot of mass in motion, so they got to be careful.
And Dr. Shetlin, you have a piece of video that you show the students that is fairly demonstrative of what you're talking about. We're going to come back with that and some more numbers and some more discussion about driving safely in Utah when we come back on Utah Matters.
Have your cell phone ready. Any physician can treat someone following an auto accident, but not all physicians are trained to find the specific injuries that occur. The Utah Whiplash Group is one of a few organizations in Utah that have certified doctors and lawyers in the treatment of auto accident injuries and whiplash. If you or someone you love has been in an auto accident, you need to call the Utah Whiplash Group. Put this number in your cell phone right now, 877-7-WHIPLASH. That's 877-794-4752. Or go online to utahwhiplash.com.
Welcome back to Utah Matters. We're with Sergeant Todd Royce from the Utah Highway Patrol, Dr. J. Shetlin, and Bryan Larson, who's a personal injury attorney. Dr. J, you have a piece of video that you show these high school groups that I think surprise everyone, really.
It's pretty powerful stuff. This is actual footage from research studies from the San Diego Spinal Research Institute, where they crashed cars into each other with live occupants, where we could measure the physics applied to human occupants rather than crash test dummies.
Who had these jobs, by the way?
They were volunteers.
My goodness.
They only made $150 a day. If anybody asked you to be in a study, just say no.
Just decline.
Just decline that. So this one we're seeing what's considered a low-speed collision, because in America it's considered a low-speed collision under 10 miles an hour and a high-speed collision at over 10 miles an hour, because the cars themselves are designed to do different things under these forces of physics. For example, over 10 miles an hour, change of velocity, the airbag should deploy. The crumple zone might engage to help absorb some of the forces so there's less transfer to the occupants. In this case, for example, the bullet vehicle, the vehicle that's in motion doing the rear ending, is going to come at 9.9 miles an hour, and it's going to strike the target vehicle that's stopped as if it's stopped at a stop sign.
Okay, hang on. Okay.
And that's going to be, he's going to go, in the black vehicle, is going to go from 0 to 6 miles an hour instantly, which is considered the change of velocity. Now, human tissues can handle up to about 5 miles an hour change of velocity okay, but over that, there's potential for some soft tissue injuries, ligaments, muscles, those kind of things. A complicating factor here is head restraint's too low, which is an injuring factor rather than a helping factor. So you want to make sure your head restraint's at the right level. And then this is important to look at, is this smaller vehicle striking larger vehicle, and there's no visible damage to the back end of this black sedan, but yet all the forces of this 4,000 pound
bullet that looks
vehicle,
painful.
Yes.
That looks like they did some damage.
Transferred through into the occupant. And also in that we see that his head experienced 13 G-forces in a low-speed collision, which means it weighed 13 times his normal weight. So a 10-pound head, which is what the average human head is 130 pounds while it's moving in the opposite direction of the body 3 times in that split second in a whiplash.
Dean, another interesting thing right there, too, is many times in this kind of an accident, because of the anesthetic effect that adrenaline has in the body, the person at the scene of the accident might not even necessarily feel that many symptoms. But the next day, they'll probably feel like they can hardly get out of bed.
Yeah. So, Sergeant Royce, you're going to that scene, and it would be typical for, well, a layman like me to look at the scene and someone's walking around, they're not bloody, there's no limbs hanging, and you'd say, oh gosh, you're all right, great. May not be so good.
Yeah, and in this case, with this this test that was done, I mean, on the freeway, that happens quite a bit, those rear-end crashes, and most people aren't going 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the forces that are in effect and the dynamics of a crash at a higher speed.
Yeah. So, Dr. Shetlin, I assume that you have people calling you up a couple days after accidents like these and going, something's not right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's really good to always get checked after an accident, just to make sure. And I would encourage seeing a certified specialist, just like all medical doctors, chiropractors, and physical therapists have their specialty. You've got pediatricians, orthopedic surgeons. Even orthopedic surgeons, they have to do a certification course to become an orthopedic surgeon rather than just a general MD. There are certified auto accident specialists out there that do help diagnose and properly document these cases and treat them.
Yeah. Okay, you've got some other video that's pretty stunning. show us that.
So this is a motion film, which motion x-rays we only take it when we're really questioning some soft tissue injuries that we're not, the symptoms are there, but we're not seeing stuff on the still films. And this is completely different than an MRI. This is a motion x-ray where we're actually seeing the bones and joints in motion. And we can clearly see that there's ligament damage up at the top where that first bone is actually sliding back and forth. That shouldn't happen. This person, I don't know how they're walking, to be honest. That is a broken neck. They've broken the second bone in their spine. And this was missed on still films. And I'm not saying that every soft tissue injury, every car accident is this extreme.
You have another piece of video that's pretty astounding. This is a guy whose neck was wired before a low-speed crash.
Yeah, so he had had surgery in his neck and then was involved in a car accident. And even though it was a low-speed collision, it was under 10 miles an hour, it still broke some titanium steel, and you can see pieces floating around in there. And that's why they do multiple angles. It's just mind-boggling to watch this.
Yeah. Sergeant Royce, you deal primarily with low-speed collisions? Is that generally what happens?
We got the gamut.
Yeah.
Anything from, when you're slowing down on the freeway at very low speeds to, up in the excess of 80, 90, 100 miles an hour.
When you come away from an accident scene, what is the thing that if you're saying to yourself, I just wish people would
buckle up.
Buckle up.
Yep. Seat belts is the biggest thing. There's been crashes that I've been at the scene of where people have passed away or been very seriously injured, where you look at it and you think people should be walking away from this crash when they're not, because they're not seatbelted in. So seat belts is the biggest thing right now in the state of Utah. Seatbelt usage is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Followed by don't drink and drive. Reduce your speed and put away those distractions.
Yeah, let's talk about distractions in just a moment. What about, I noticed that there is a fairly high number of drug-related accidents.
Yeah.
Is that growing?
When we talk about impaired driving, we're talking about alcohol, which most people think of, but we're also talking about illegal drugs and legal prescription drugs. That segment is growing.
And also drowsy driving, too, is an additional problem you see sometimes. You'll get people that start on a trip from somewhere in Colorado headed towards Las Vegas, and they drive right through Utah. And, somewhere around Cedar City, they're dozing off.
Yeah, and if you're behind one of those vehicles and you're driving behind someone that's an impaired driver from, say, alcohol or substance abuse and a drowsy driving situation, driving patterns are very similar. They're very similar.
The big topic on driving and driving safety is now distracted driving. We're going to talk about that in just a moment when we come back on Utah Matters.
Have your cell phone ready. Any physician can treat someone following an auto accident, but not all physicians are trained to find the specific injuries that occur. The Utah Whiplash Group is one of a few organizations in Utah that have certified doctors and lawyers in the treatment of auto accident injuries and whiplash. If you or someone you love has been in an auto accident, you need to call the Utah Whiplash Group. Put this number in your cell phone right now, 877-7-WHIPLASH. That's 877-794-4752. Or go online to utahwhiplash.com.
Welcome back to Utah Matters. We're talking about public safety and being safe on the roads in Utah and the success of this campaign to reduce traffic deaths. Let's talk about distracted driving for a moment. We're going to start with this little vignette from the Zero Fatalities campaign.
You leave for work every morning. Never, ever do you leave with the intention to hurt someone. When I left that morning, that was definitely not my intention. To hurt or harm anyone. And I took 2 lives. I was sending and receiving text messages when I drifted across the center line and struck another car. I thought it was safe. I thought it was something that I could do. That I could drive down the road and send a text message and be safe. It pretty much runs my life. Everything I do on a daily basis is kind of centered around that accident and what happened. You choose and text to drive, you might be fine one day. Next day, you're going to be right here in the same seat.
Pretty powerful stuff. Cell phones. I don't think you can go anywhere, drive anywhere in this state for very long before you see people on cell phones driving their cars, making turns. We all cuss at them, and then we realize that occasionally we do it ourselves.
Yeah. Cell phones have become a big part of our lives. A lot of people will use it to make up time, to and from work, getting stuff done, all of that. But coming up on May 13th, law is going to be enacted where if you manipulate your cell phone, then you can receive a citation for that. Before it was just texting, now it's manipulating your cell phone.
So explain how that'll be enforced, Sergeant.
Everybody's seen it when you're driving down the road. That person that's got their cell phone up on their wheel and they're moving their thumbs or they're looking down to manipulate their cell phone at all. And if an officer observes that, then you will be pulled over and issued a citation or a warning or be educated on what you need to be doing instead of what you want to be doing.
I'm going to guess that people that you come across at accident scenes who are doing that always had in the back of their mind that I can do it. I'm one of those guys who I can multitask. It's not a problem for me. Do you hear that?
Yeah. A lot of people say that they can multitask, but multitasking is a little bit of a farce, a little ways, because when you're multitasking, you're doing more than one thing at once, and your thought process is not strictly on driving.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're focusing on. When you're behind the wheel, that's what you need to be doing, is driving, not anything else.
How do you go about when you suspect that a cell phone's been the cause of an accident? How do you go about determining that it was?
Well, we talk to the people, look at it. If it's a severe enough crash, then generally we'll get a warrant to look at calls received and extrapolate the time back to see if that could have been a factor. We've had cases in this state where people have gone to jail, done some jail time for killing someone in a crash when they've been texting on the phone.
Wow. Dr. Jake?
But we shouldn't be calling to report somebody else driving, calling on their phone. So just want to make sure that
because someone might be calling on that person's calling, and we have problems.
Using cell phones also creates civil liability for you as well. In fact, many times in civil cases, we will subpoena the records from the cell phone company to determine whether or not the person was in fact driving at the time of the accident, texting or using their phone at the time of the accident.
Yeah. Bryan, let's talk about what happens when you're at the scene of an accident, especially if it's your own. What are the do's and don'ts?
Most of it's just pretty much common sense, and there actually are lists out there that you can get. But obviously, the first thing we want you to do is to remain calm. There's no reason for any after the accident road rage where you're taking out your frustrations against the person that just hit you. We can sort all that out in due course through the proper means. But we want you to first, of course, obey law enforcement. You can contact law enforcement and have them come and obey the directions that they may give you at the scene. We also think it's helpful to get medical care or attention as soon as possible. It's helpful to get checked out by a competent physician. A certified auto accident physician would be especially helpful. And photographs from the scene of the accident are extremely important because that accident scene changes the moment the vehicles are moved and drives away. Many times a photograph is very, very important evidence. And then after all of that sort of stuff is done, we encourage you to contact competent legal counsel. Many times there are rights and issues and things to help unscramble the mess between the insurance companies that you really can't handle yourself.
Yeah. Now, we've got you both here, all three of you here. Where's the line where you say, just take a number, take a picture, and deal with it later? Where do you recommend that
Well,
that happen?
in fact, I was going to touch on a little bit along the Wasatch Front. We encourage people, and you've probably seen signs on the side of the road, that if you're involved in a minor collision, a fender bender, nobody's hurt visibly at the time, and your car's movable, to move to a safe spot, which is usually off the freeway, and then call us. If you're quick enough, snap some pictures, get some information from that vehicle, the other vehicles involved, and then move off to a more safer position, because as we've seen in the last recent past, we've had people that are hit on the freeway, and that creates a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to mention there are 2 apps out there that are really helpful. As this law changes, I think this is helpful. It's called Text Me Later, and parents are going to love it because if their teens download it, it blocks calls from coming in while the vehicle's moving. It senses that the phone's in motion, and it'll block calls, and it'll block texts, and send a text out that says, "Text me later, I'm driving." That's kind of a nice safety one. And there's another one called the Auto Accident app, and it turns your cell phone into an OnStar, where somebody will actually call and walk you through what to do. Stay calm, take pictures of the scene, pull your cars to the side. And it also turns it into a black box where it measures the physics for the police report and the physicians to know, well, what exactly happened in this? You know, how fast were they going exactly? Rather than, because we don't have a gun on the scene, you know, we can't radar gun. Oh, they're guessing. Well, I was going 10 miles an hour. They were going 50. We don't know.
Wow.
So anyway,
Waiting for that app that'll drive my car.
Yeah, there you go.
We've got a couple final thoughts when we come back on Utah Matters.
It goes quick.
Just some closing thoughts here on Utah Matters today. Where do we get educational material if we want to beef up our own ability to drive safer?
Some of the places you can is you can go to the Utah Department of Public Safety Highway Safety webpage. That's got a lot of information on it, and also Zero Fatalities webpage. It's got some information on upcoming events, some things that can make you a better driver.
And Sergeant, the final word for you is buckle up, right?
Yep. The biggest message is make sure you buckle up. Whether you're a safe driver or whether the person out there you think is not a safe driver, that's your best defense.
Yeah. Bryan, you had a word about seatbelts.
I did. Most people know that when you've been in an accident, if there was a car seat in the car, you want to replace the car seat after it's been in an accident. The same thing is also true with the seat belts. If you look at the safety equipment section on your owner's manual, you'll probably see that. Sometimes it's even highlighted or in big bold print. You need to replace the safety belts and the seat belts. And a lot of times in the normal insurance estimate, they won't include that in the property damage estimate because it's a more expensive item. But replacing the seat belts are very, very important.
Dr. J, watch for the headaches.
Watch for the headaches. And, you know, if you've got to throw out your car seat because it's been in an accident, get your child checked by a certified specialist as well.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Sergeant Todd Royce from the Utah Highway Patrol, Dr. J. Shetlin, and Attorney Bryan Larson, thank you so much for joining us for this little chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope all of us will drive more safely for the sake of ourselves and others. Thank you for joining us on Utah Matters. We will see you next week.